resume that, about what it is they teach. It is faith-based training. I know we have several people in the community who may have other belief systems, but just we do want to share that it is Christian-based, faith-based teaching, but this can be applied to all of humanity. So we are a community of inclusion, but this is the foundation of our teaching. And if this is your first time experiencing the training, I'm sure you will see why we reached out to Dr. K. And we'll have Erica Bishop joining us next month on emotional intelligence. So tonight, Dr. K is going to continue her deep dive into happiness. Last week was really awesome. And today, are we going into the word wheel, Dr. K?
No, we're not doing the word wheel today.
Okay. So
Because we're
Dr.
just
K, I'm going
sticking
to
with
turn it over
happiness.
to you to give us an overview of what is going to happen tonight for some of the newcomers.
Wow. Thank you, Tiara. I am so excited and elated to be a part of this community and to have this opportunity. And every time I study one of these topics, it ends up being a lot bigger than I ever imagined. There is so much information out there to be gleaned. And what I've done is try to condense as much of it as I could wrap my mind around to present tonight. So tonight we're going to be, again, continuing the deep dive into happiness. And tonight we're going to look at the things that cause happiness, the benefits of happiness. How does it actually serve us in life in general, and then in particular in the marketplace? And I'm trying to pair with what Erica brings to the table in terms of emotional intelligence. And she does a lot in dealing with how to have more success in work or at work through emotional intelligence. Well, our emotions factor heavily in our work performance and in our job satisfaction. So we'll be talking about those things in depth tonight. What causes happiness? At the end, I'm going to talk about 10 things that you can do immediately, and not at the end, but in the course of it. 10 things that you can start doing tonight that will foster more happiness in your life, because happiness is not something that just happens. Happiness is something you can cultivate, a way of happiness, a lifestyle of happiness. Is something that even if you have a melancholy mindset, you can bring yourself to happiness. And I think that's what's significant, especially as we're dealing with these days of the pandemic and people being on lockdown. That really can affect someone's ability to remain happy. So that's the overview. Do I go ahead and get to dive in now?
Dr. K, yes, you can continue the training. And once you stop the training, please let us know when you are officially done
Mm-hmm.
so that we can take the recording off and go into any conversation that someone may have. But
Okay,
Tanisha is following along in the chat. So we'll let you know if
great.
there's any questions via chat.
All righty, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go to the PowerPoint. And I love PowerPoints. PowerPoints are fun. I'm going to go to the slide. There we go. This is Deep Dive into Happiness Part 2. And the first thing we're going to do is a real quick review. We're dealing with emotions in general. So I've got that same definition that we used last week. And it is a conscious mental reaction, such as anger or fear, subjectively experienced as strong feeling, usually directed toward a specific object or event, typically accompanied by physiological and behavioral changes in the body. That is a big, broad definition of emotions. So if anybody ever asks you, here's the definition. By way of review, last week we talked about the fact that emotion has 3 components. The first one, you've heard that word, in fact, all 3 of these words you heard in that definition. Subjective is what happens in your mind, in your heart. It's what you feel internally, the feeling itself. Physiologically are the changes that it makes in your physical person. When you get angry, we used to talk about people poking their lips out and their jaws getting swollen. When people start to cry, their lip begins to quiver, or they may get a big lump in their throat. They may ball their fist up. They may begin to fidget if they're nervous. So subjective is what they're feeling inside. A subjective response would be butterflies in your stomach. When you're having when you become anxious, you start to get that gnawing feeling. That's the internal physiological response. And then there's the expressive response. It's how you demonstrate or how you behave that you're having in the behavior that attends that emotional experience. When someone is angry, they may, in order not to hit somebody, they may punch a wall. They may begin to swear. They may begin to scream. If they're happy, they may dance around. I remember when my son, we got my son a battery-operated Flintstones car. Battery-operated, big yellow car, and you never saw a little 7-year-old boy dance with joy the way that little boy danced when he saw that battery-operated car. It was what he wanted. We found one at a great deal. And the feeling that he had inside was happiness. The physiological was that he began to smile and jump, and then he started to dance. And after he finished with his little dance, he got into the car and he drove away. So those are the three components of emotion: subjective, what you feel internally; physiologically, the way it presents in your body; and expressive, what you do externally that others can see and experience that emotion with you. Now, I had three definitions or three words for happiness the last time. I really worked to find a definition that I thought was really good, workable, and memorable. In her 2007 book, The How of Happiness, positive psychology researcher Sonia Lyubomirsky, and I try to say that 3 times fast, she describes happiness, or she defines it as the experience of joy, contentment, or positive well-being, combined with a sense that one's life is good, meaningful, and worthwhile. Have you ever had one of those moments where you just sat and said, it's a good life? I like where I am right now. You are experiencing in that moment a happy moment. I don't have the Bible verse here, but Paul, the Apostle Paul, and I love Tiara, thank you for saying that we're speaking from a Christian perspective. But what I have discovered in this is pretty much every major religion will affirm the things that we'll discuss tonight, because they are all good things. Every major religion will affirm happiness and will affirm the steps to getting to happiness or cultivating happiness in your life. So Miss Sonia, and I can't pronounce her last name more than once, she says that it is an experience. Remember, we talked about internal and physiological. It's a sense of contentment. Paul says, I've learned to be content in every situation, whether I have a lot or I have a little. Paul learned how to be happy. Now, the next slide is going to show something interesting. It's 2 ends of the same pole. There are 2 views of happiness. And I believe whenever you have 2 poles, 2 polar opposites, somewhere in the middle is the truth. Either extreme is not going to work, but somewhere in the middle, there's a blend, and it's in that blended area that you find the truth that you're really seeking. There are those on the left side who argue for hedonism, and hedonism is a purely physical experience. It is sensual pleasure, and not necessarily sensual in the sense of erotic, but sensual in the sense of using our senses. You can be hedonistic and go after food. You can be a hedonist and go after adrenaline chasing events. Those people who jump off mountains, bungee jump, and whitewater raft, that kind of stuff. The hedonist is really looking for physical pleasure, and they want their senses to be tingling at all times. You go after great smells. You go after beautiful vistas and sights. You go after wonderful things to feel. So there are those on one end of the spectrum who argue that happiness is hedonism. It is experiencing physical pleasure above all else. And then this other word is a Greek word, eudaimonia, and it is the other end of the spectrum. It's life satisfaction, to have a favorable attitude about one's life as a whole, either over its entirety or over a limited period of time. I liken eudaimonia to when my house is clean and I'm sitting in my favorite recliner and I've got my lights dimly lit, I've got a glass of wine, And it might even be raining outside. But at that particular moment, I'm very satisfied with my life. I'm very happy with the way things are and the way things are going, with the trajectory, with what I'm expecting to come. It's one of those moments. There used to be a commercial, and I'm going to date myself on this, but I loved the commercial. It was for a beer called Lowenbrow. And Lowenbrow, I don't even know if they make this beer anymore, but it had the best jingle. And the words to the song were, "Here's to good friends, the night is kind of special." And that's it. And the scene for the commercial was a campfire with people sitting around talking and enjoying each other's company. That's a eudaimonia moment. That's a moment when you're just satisfied with living, but it's also a hedonistic moment because you're having the physical fun of the fellowship or the company of the people who are surrounding you. So neither pole is right by itself. What you want to hit is that point in the middle. You want those physical senses tingling. You want to be on the whitewater rafting. You want to go to the wave pool. You want to go down the big slide. You want to experience life in it. You want to eat a delicious meal. You want to experience life in its sensory pleasures. And sensory would have been a better word than sensual. But you also want to have those moments where you just sit and reflect and you say, right now is a good place to be. Right now, I like my life. Somewhere in those two areas is happiness. And anywhere, as far as I'm concerned, where you're in the middle, you're not on one extreme or the other, but you're in the middle the majority of the time, you really are in a state of happiness. Now, there are causes to happiness. And that's where we'll get to how happiness serves you and how you can increase happiness in your life. I love to say to people that there are roots, and roots bring blossoms. So here are some roots that you can put into your life, and they will bring blossoms of happiness. Pleasurable experiences, we already talked about that. Just having fun. Have fun. It's okay. Laughing is great medicine. We talked about that last week in the Bible verses that I showed. There's one in Proverbs, I think it's chapter 15 or chapter 17, but it says, "A merry heart does good like medicine." Laughter, it brings a smile to the spirit. It lifts you, but a cast down spirit dries up the bones. So pleasurable experiences cause happiness. It's all right to do some things to laugh. Go see a good comedian. Watch a comedy movie. It will lift your mood. Altruism is another cause for happiness. One of the things that researchers have discovered is that the effect of selflessness on happiness is supported by a 2008 experiment in which participants were given a gift of $5 or $20, and they were told that they could spend that gift on themselves or they could give it to someone else. The amount of money that they gave didn't make a difference. It didn't have any notable effect on their happiness, but the participants who gave away the money experienced elevated positive effect following the experiment. The people that they talked to who actually took their $5 or their $10 or their $15 and handed it to someone else to meet someone else's need felt a greater sense of life satisfaction, a greater sense of happiness. So if you're feeling down and you want to start to fill up, go do a good deed. Become a Girl Scout, become a Boy Scout, or adopt that mentality. Do a good deed. Relationships bring happiness, increasing the caliber of your relationships. Relationships is not a quantity thing, it's a quality thing. That's one of the small problems with social media, is that we've gotten caught up into quantity with social media and we've forgotten quality. Familial relationships and friendships affect happiness and can be impacted by a person's level of positive affect. That's what they call happiness. Our ability to make friends often affects our self-esteem. Unsurprisingly, people with extrovert personalities have been found to enjoy higher levels of happiness. Why? Because they can interact with more people. And this is not, again, not looking at the quantity, but looking at the quality. They have deeper relationships with the people with whom they interact. It has also been proven that married people, happy people, do better in their marriages than people who tend to be unhappy or blase. The people who are happiest in their marriages tend to really commit and give all that they have to the marriage. The other benefit of happiness in relationships is that there is a ripple effect. Just like a disease is contagious, happiness is contagious. So when your relationships, when you bring happiness to your relationships, you tend to make the people in the relationship happy as well. That's that person you get on the phone with them, and when you stop, the phone conversation is over and you're still laughing. Those are those things that make life better. That's happiness. Positive emotions. Happiness exists when positive emotions are dominant, with the experience of with a negative emotion being minimal. The so-called pleasant life, which involves enjoyable positive experiences. So you want to keep those positive feelings for as long as you can. Now, this would have been a great place to put the word will, because we could look at all of those other words that come in under happy. Things like pride, things like gratitude, and we'll talk about that. Elation, joy, cheerfulness. All of those positive emotions, you want to experience those as much as possible. What I've discovered, is that you can think about those and experience them. If you sit down, some people call this practicing mindfulness. But if you sit down and think about a positive moment in your life, a good event in your life, an event where you felt at your best, your most authentic, you had a great time, you can bolster that happiness feeling in yourself by producing those positive emotions in your thought life. And that, remember, the root has the blossom. That will factor in to bringing happiness in your life overall. A fifth cause of happiness is engagement. Engagement refers to being fully involved in a task that is at hand and feeling absorbed by it. It is that putting yourself all in. According to Seligman, research done in 2002, the good life is a result of a person developing and then demonstrating their signature strengths and virtues in relationships, work, and leisure. Signature strengths are the result of an individual discovering the unique strengths that they already have and taking ownership of them. Everybody is born with ability. Everybody is born with something that they can naturally do well. They enjoy doing it. They don't have to think about doing it. We call it a gift. Sometimes people call it a talent. But when you engage, when you figure out what that talent is, and then you begin to engage that talent, to use that talent on a daily basis, you find happiness. You find it, some people call it finding your passion. But getting engaged at a project at 100% of your capacity will change how you overall view life. It will bring happiness in your life. I have a son who was put into a remedial summer program. Now, this is a boy who was in a talented and gifted program, that intelligent all the way through, but he had some behavioral issues, had an encounter with a teacher that wasn't positive. So he was put into a remedial summer program. And he came home complaining about it. And I asked him what was his investment. And that's what engagement is. Engagement is a way of saying investment. So I asked him, what was his investment in the class? And he said, well, I come in and sit down like everybody else. It is so boring. And I said, tomorrow when you go, I want you to invest yourself. I want you to engage at 100%. I want, when the teacher says hello, I want you to shout back, good morning, how are you? I want you to make yourself engage, bring all of you to the table. And he did it the next day, and the day after, and the day after, and he changed the entire feel of the class. By the end of the summer, it was one of his best experiences. He made several good friends, and he actually walked away saying, you know, I really enjoyed it. It was really a good experience. It was a good experience because he engaged himself. When we bring ourselves to the table, everything that we are that's good to the table and engage, we find happiness. We experience happiness. The other thing is meaning. Meaning exists when we have a higher purpose than ourselves. The meaningful life sees a person using their signature strengths to work towards the greater good or work towards the benefit of others. So bringing meaning to your life. If you are sitting home every night watching TV, after work. That does not give your life meaning. You've got to find a higher purpose. And one reason is because you were created for a higher purpose. You were created to do bigger, better than watching the TV. You were created to do bigger and better than just being on social media. Get involved, volunteer, find a passion, find a cause. When you do those things, you engender happiness in your life. You bring about happiness. You bring about life satisfaction. You bring about those pleasing experiences. When you go out and you volunteer. I have a good friend who, during this whole pandemic thing, she said she wanted to know what to do. She could no longer do her job. And she said, I asked the Lord, what do I do now? And I heard volunteer. And she volunteers at a local food pantry. And she has gotten so much joy out of doing that, making new connections, meeting new people. And now her life, since she doesn't have work anymore, she now has meaning. She has purpose. She has a reason for being. And then 7th is a personal decision. You can decide to take steps to make yourself happy, to bring happiness into your life. I love this. Happiness is a personal decision. For someone who is dealing with depression, you can begin to do the work to make yourself happy. Now, understand, it will not happen overnight. It's not a one and done. You have to develop the practices or the disciplines that bring happiness. Here's a list of 10 things that you can start to do immediately that will start to engender happiness. That's why I've called this cultivate happiness. Plant and water, plant and water, plant and water. And whatever you sow, the Bible says, whatever you sow, that's what you reap. So if you sow these activities that bring happiness, you will reap happiness. Now, there are rules to sowing and reaping. One of the rules, a couple of the rules. One is that you always reap more than what you sow. So you can do a little bit and get a whole lot. The other one is that you always reap after you sow and after you have sowed consistently. You don't, when my mom had a garden when I was a kid, and to this day I don't like yard work, but my mom had a garden, and what I learned as we planted the seeds in the garden is we didn't plant just one seed in the hole. We always planted 2 or 3. We looked at the package, and the package would say to get one good plant, you need to plant 4 seeds. So in that one space, we would plant 4 seeds. In another space, we might plant 5. And this is to get one plant. To get one plant, we would sow 4 or 5 seeds into the same hole. And that's because not all of those seeds would germinate. Not all of them would grow. But once the one that did grow started growing, the other seeds would become food. They would become fertilizer, and they would help that other plant grow. So as you cultivate happiness in your life, these are not one and done. These are disciplines. These are things that you have to do on a routine and regular basis. Establish a morning ritual. Believe it or not, this brings happiness because it is consistency. It brings consistency into your life. Your morning ritual could involve exercising, meditating, praying, remembering all the things you have to be thankful for, writing a compassionate note to a family member or to friends in need. But create a morning ritual. Get into a morning habit. That starts your day off, and it starts it on a positive foot. There is a military commander who does a motivational speech called Make Your Bed. And he says, you want to change your life. Make your bed every morning is the first thing that you do when you get up. He says doing that one positive act will lead to another positive act, which will lead to another positive act, which will lead to another positive act. And before you know it, your life has changed because you sowed one seed of making your bed. So establish a morning ritual, and that ritual can be whatever you need it to be. Mine is I get up, I grab a cup of coffee, and I grab my devotional. That's my morning ritual. I spend that time in prayer, in contemplation, in meditation. And the days that I don't do it, I feel it. The days that I don't do it, somehow the day never gets going. And at the end of the day, I sit down and I wonder what happened? Why was this day not just a great day? It was because I didn't do my ritual. Second thing you need to do, and you've heard this a lot, eat healthy. Eat healthy. A healthy diet is a source of energy and nutrients, both of which contribute to physical and emotional well-being. And I'm not saying that you can't enjoy cake every now and then, but a cake every day is going to be a problem. Doritos every day, going to be a problem. Sodas every day, going to be a problem. Your body needs good nutrition. Your emotional health needs good nutrition. What happens with your emotions is also, it's physiological. It also happens in the brain. There are hormones that are involved in this. And because of the time limitations, we can't get all into the hormones and the whole physiological responses that happen in the brain. But in order for those hormones to work properly, and actually for those hormones to be produced, you have to give your body good nutrition. It is required. Exercise is another one. Exercise is another way to cultivate happiness in your life. Get up and move. My former father-in-law used to say that you can have one of two ends to your life. You can either rust out or wear out. Rusting out is painful. Rusting out causes the atrophy of the muscles. Rusting out makes you become dull and listless, both mentally and physically. Wearing out, though, is fun. Wearing out has experiences in life. Wearing out allows you to share the journey with someone else. So exercising is a way of cultivating happiness. If you don't get enough physical exercise, you have less energy and stamina to work at achieving happiness. The simple tasks of everyday life become chores, and no one looks forward to doing chores. To reconnect with the joy of living, you have to get your body moving again in a way that goes beyond your normal daily routine. Exercise, take a walk. And I'm not talking about strenuous weightlifting. I'm not talking about getting a membership in a gym. But when you get done with dinner, instead of sitting down to watch the news, set the DVR for the news and go out and take a walk. If you have a pet, that's a great thing. That's why they recommend pets for senior citizens. They recommend that they get a dog because the dog needs to be walked. And the dog will encourage the senior to get out and to be active. The next thing you need to do is get enough sleep. I know, I used to hate that one. I hated that one with a passion. I would say I need 4 and no more. I can go 24 hours on a 4-hour charge. I'm good, let's go. That wears down the body. And eventually all of that will catch up with you. It would catch up with me one weekend, usually 2 weeks out, and I would sleep for about 12 hours. I would go to bed Friday night at midnight and wake up Saturday afternoon, 1 o'clock. My body trying to restore itself because I didn't give it the time to restore itself. Sleep is essential to health and happiness, yet millions of people suffer from acute and chronic sleep deprivation. Children need around 10 hours per night. Adolescents need about 8 hours, and adults require 7 to 8 hours. So get enough sleep every night. Sleep is how your body recharges. It's how your body rejuvenates. None of us leaves our phone off the charger. All of us recognize that our phone needs to be charged in order to function. Sleep is charging your body. Sleep is the way your body restores itself. And when your body is able to restore, guess what? The byproduct of body restoration is happiness. You can meditate. Meditating is the oldest technique known to man for producing a state of inner calm and relaxation. All religions include meditation in one form or another as a primary way of achieving spiritual connection. It has a variety of medicinal benefits. Meditation can lower your blood pressure. It can decrease muscular pain. It can improve sleep. In addition to leading to improved self-esteem and a general sense of well-being. So meditation is significant. There are several meditations. You can actually YouTube a few. You can Google meditations to relax, meditations to sleep, and they are very, very effective. There's a meditation that I saw. I didn't practice it yet, but I did see it in the study. That is a relaxation meditation where you meditate on each part of your body, and it guides you through thinking about your toes, thinking about your ankle, thinking about your shin, your knee, your thighs, and then relaxing each one of those body parts and releasing the tension that's in them. So again, a root of meditation, a blossom of happiness. Make a spiritual connection. Now, I always say that I do this from the Christian standpoint. The gentleman, the information that I received, the gentleman I got this from says it doesn't matter which religion you practice or whether you actually consider yourself religious at all. Plenty of people think themselves as spiritual but don't follow any particular religious faith. What matters is how often you make that spiritual connection. Research has shown that just showing up at a religious service of some sort once a week cuts your odds of developing heart disease literally in half. Did you get that? Showing up at some religious service once a week cuts your chances of developing heart disease in half. So not only do you get happiness, you get improved living circumstances, improved health, and we're going to get to that. Everybody has brought gratitude to the forefront. Be thankful. Be thankful. Gratitude is one of the best disciplines, it's one of the best things you can do for yourself. Gratitude is one of the identifiable key ingredients to achieving happiness. First, your needs are satisfied and then you're grateful. That's how it's supposed to work. But for many unhappy people, that's not the case. They find themselves neither satisfied nor thankful for what life has provided in the way of material things or opportunities. Being thankful will change your entire outlook on life. Being thankful gets you to focus on all that you have. Even in this pandemic, we can practice gratitude. We can be grateful that we have a home. We can be grateful that we have children. We can be grateful that we have jobs to go to. We can be grateful even if we don't have all of the food that we want, but grateful that there are people who provide food pantries where we can go and get food. We can be grateful that there is air to breathe, that there is a sun to enjoy, that there is a beach that once they open it back up, you can go to. But practice gratitude. In another group that I'm part of, there's a young lady who does a lunchtime presentation, and she always has a gratitude entree. And she does the most extraordinary gratitude entrees because she's grateful for things that we don't think about. I think about being grateful for my heartbeat, my eyes blinking, the fact that I can breathe, the fact that I exist. I think she says I'm grateful for trees. I'm grateful for rivers. I'm grateful, believe it or not, for earthworms, because without earthworms, we wouldn't have the trees and the vegetation. I'm grateful for honeybees. She's grateful for all of these things that we don't think about being grateful for. But if you practice gratitude, that's a root. You're going to have a blossom of happiness. And remember, these are not one and done. These are disciplines. These are the ways that you respond to life. Practice compassion. Do something for somebody else. Think and feel with compassion. All world religions and truly great figures in the history of mankind have one thing in common. They teach, preach, and exemplify compassion. Mother Teresa, Jesus Christ, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., all of them practice compassion. What is compassion? It's seeing a need and meeting it. That's it. Not asking why that need exists, not asking what that person did to get into that position. It's simply saying, I see you're hungry. Here is some food. I see you're cold. Here's a coat. Here's a blanket. It might even be, I see you need shelter. Here's a night in a hotel because it's raining. I won't take you home, but I can put you in a hotel. Practice compassion. Somebody in your sphere of influence, somebody in your friendships may need somebody just to listen to them. That's a compassionate act. They may need somebody to come and sit with them after a loved one has died. That's a compassionate act. When we act, we were created to be in community. I believe in the biblical account of the creation. God created man, women, people to be in community. And part of that reason is so that they could comfort each other when bad things happen. When we give compassion, when we need compassion, compassion comes back to us. And quite often it comes from the very people that we have given it to. Get involved. We talked about being engaged before. Volunteer. Get out of your house, get off your chair, and even if during the pandemic, you can be involved. There are phone calls you can make. There are cards you can write. There are ways to be involved. There are ways to engage, even in the course of the pandemic. There are people who are making face masks. You can make face masks and donate them. Get involved, volunteer. And then when the pandemic is over, find an organization, find a passion, whatever it is that is important to you, begin to volunteer in that particular area. Because remember, that volunteering is going to help you on both ends of this spectrum. Volunteering is going to help you on the hedonistic side because you are going to get physical experiences when you work with the other volunteers. It's also going to help you on the life satisfaction side, eudaimonia. It's going to help you on that side because you're going to be satisfied with your life, especially when you volunteer to help those less fortunate than yourself. You'll understand then how fortunate you really are. And then 10, laugh. Develop a sense of humor. Lighten up. Try not to take life so seriously. Put a smile on your face. Practice smiling if you have to. Look at yourself in the mirror. That may actually make you crack up. Look at yourself in the mirror. Don't just read the sports section of the newspaper. Read the funny section. Read the comments. End the day by listening to your favorite comedian. Spend some time with an irreverent friend, somebody you know who makes you laugh. Because laughter cultivates happiness. Remember that physical sensation? Laughter gives you that physical sensation, that root of humor, that root of laughter. And I know YouTube is loaded with excellent comedians who will have you laughing in no time. So if you are struggling with depression, if you are struggling with a melancholy disposition, just kind of down, here are 10 steps that you can start tomorrow. You can start tonight. Tonight before you go to bed, list the things that you're grateful for. There was an old Christmas carol called Count Your Blessings. Count your blessings. Bing Crosby used to sing it. Said, when I am worried and I can't sleep, I count my blessings instead of sheep. Then I fall asleep counting my blessings. I bet you if you do that, you'll have a better night's rest too. That keeps your mind from thinking about all the negative. Think about the positive. There are good things, believe it or not. In even some of the worst situations, there are some good things. And that doesn't mean stay in that situation, but it does mean to bring the practice of gratitude in the middle of that thing so that you can get through that. Now, how happiness helps or how happiness serves. I like the triple H's. How happiness helps was great alliteration. So instead of saying serve, I said it helps. But in life, happiness can improve your overall health. We talked about that before when we were cultivating happiness. Several studies have linked happiness with improved heart health and a lower risk of heart disease. There's a reason to get happy. And these are studies that have demonstrated that heart disease can be reduced by 13 to 26% just by being happy. It improves your overall health because it will cause you to have an overall healthier lifestyle. You cope better with stress and trauma when you're happier. You cope better with stress and trauma. Excess stress causes higher levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, which can lead to a number of health conditions. Multiple studies have found that individuals who are happier have consistently lower cortisol levels in their bloodstream. Lower cortisol levels, lower stress, and we all know how much damage stress can do in the body. So when you cultivate happiness, you give your whole health system a boost. Happiness strengthens your immune system. That's one that I thought was really, really interesting. Some research has indicated that by being happier, you can support a strong immune system, leading to greater health all around, and the ability to fight infections or diseases more effectively. Happier people don't get sick as often, and that's just a fact. So when you cultivate those roots of happiness, remember those 10 things we just talked about, you are boosting your overall heart health, you're reducing your blood pressure, you are de-stressing, you are making the effects of trauma less invasive on your body, you are strengthening your immune system. so that you can tackle corona when she shows up in your body. You can actually get beyond it. Overall, you end up with an overall healthier lifestyle. Happiness has also been linked to several positive and highly beneficial health habits that promote a greater sense of well-being. This includes eating healthier, eating a healthier diet, engaging in more physical activity, and overcoming poor sleeping habits. Remember, we just talked about all three of those as ways to cultivate happiness. There is a cyclical effect here. So when you sleep, when you cultivate better sleep habits, you get happy, which helps you to sleep better. Your improved overall health, when you improve your eating health, it makes you happy. So you continue improving your eating health, which gives your body the nutrients that it needs. So now your body can deal with stress, it can deal with trauma because you don't have all the cortisol floating around in your blood. Happiness reduces pain. This one is really significant, especially if you're like me and deal with arthritis. Researchers believe that individuals who are happier have a better perspective and are able to accept new thoughts easily, which can lead to a lower experience of pain, especially connected to chronic conditions such as arthritis. Happiness can help ease your pain. And I know it's difficult when you're in chronic pain. I've been there. It's hard to stay happy. That's why you have to practice that habit of laughing. You have to find good comedians who, whenever you see them, even if you see the routine 16 times, it'll make you laugh. I love watching old episodes of Carol Burnett because Carol Burnett's shows are hilarious. And I found that when I watch those shows, I don't need to take as much medicine to deal with pain. That laughter it produces something called endorphins, which are feel-good hormones in your brain, and they help shut down the pain sensors. Happiness improves relationships. We talked about that. Marriages are improved when people are happy, and they bring happiness to the marriage. Don't look to a relationship to make you happy. You need to come into the relationship happy, and your happiness will improve the relationship. If you're waiting on the relationship to make you happy, you're going to have some issues. You're going to have some issues. Happiness is a personal responsibility. I have to work on being happy myself. I can't count on somebody else to make me happy. Here's the reason why. If I count on them to make me happy, what happens when they go away? My happiness leaves with them. So, but if I'm happy in myself, if they go away, I can maintain my own happiness. Happy people are more creative. Your creative juices flow better when you are happy. The ideas start to spark. You ever start laughing with somebody and start telling a funny story and you begin to feed each other back and forth and you laugh even more? When you're happy, your creativity seems to blossom. It seems to explode. Happy people are better able to see the big picture. Happy people don't get caught up in the minutia. Happy people are able to see the whole picture. And because they can look at the whole picture, they are able to move forward. And then happiness is tied to increased life longevity. Who doesn't want to live a good long life? One of the most interesting finds from the research for health benefits of happiness is its connection with life longevity. Researchers believe that because of the impact happiness has on all of the above health benefits, it can ultimately help you live longer. If you're eating better, you're sleeping better, you're getting exercise, you are undoubtedly going to live a longer, happier life, a longer, better life. So being happy has a lot of serious beneficial consequences. And this is just 9 of what I found. There are a lot more than this, but we be here all night and we've been here a while now anyway. Happiness in the workplace. It creates a more supportive environment. If you are happy in your workplace, if you bring in happiness, you will find yourself being supported by your coworkers. Happiness creates better decision-making and problem solving. When you're in the doldrums, when you're in the dumps, it's hard to think of a solution. But when you're happy and you're on the outside of that problem rather than in the middle of it, you can remember, we said you see the big picture. When you can see the big picture, you can see some solutions. You can bring problem solving to the table. We talked about the fact that people who are happy tend to make better decisions because they have an optimistic outlook and they're looking at the optimistic decision. It encourages risk taking, decreases fear of making mistakes. How many of us haven't done something because we were afraid that we would mess it up? We were afraid that it wouldn't work. We were afraid that it just wouldn't go well, so we didn't even bother to take the risk. Let me give you a hint here. If somebody asks you, can you do something? If you've never done it before, don't say no. If you've never done it before, just say, I don't know, I've never tried. And then give it a try. Because if you couldn't do it, then there's no problem, no harm, no foul. But if you find out that you can do it and you now have a new skill, you've got another accomplishment which brings you happiness and something new to bring to the table, to bring to the marketplace. Happiness inspires creativity, confidence, dedication, and loyalty. That's a lot of inspiration. We talked about creative. You're more creative when you're happy. You're also more confident. People will trust you more too. It's easier to trust somebody who's got a smile than somebody who has a frown. You don't want that cheesy smile, but a good, genuine smile is trustworthy. Dedication and loyalty. People who are happy engender this in their coworkers. People are more confident in you when you're happy. They're more dedicated. They are for you when you're happy. And they are more loyal when you're happy. And chances are it goes the same way. It's that two-way street. You're more creative. You're more confident. You're more dedicated. You're more loyal. And because you're bringing that to the table, you're receiving that from the table. Improved work relationships happen when you're happy. You get along better with your coworkers. I know everybody can use that. Improved individual and team productivity. Happy people are more productive. They are more focused. They're better able to work alone and they're better able to work in a group. Happy people are not the ones who are divisive. They're the ones saying, let's figure out how to pull together and make this thing happen. Better customer service satisfaction. If you work in customer service, if you bring happiness to those phone calls, you'll get more likely happiness from the person on the other end, no matter how upset they are. People can hear you smiling over the phone. Did you know that? You can hear a smile in someone's voice. And who wants to look at someone speak who is unexpressive, especially if the only expression they give is a frown? But if somebody is smiling at you, you can't help but smile back. And you can hear a smile over the phone. And if you hear a smile, you'll smile back. More supportive environment. We talked about that. One of the last things I want to leave you with is that happy people tend to make better money. Happy people tend to make better money. Now, there was an argument, there's a lot of debate on whether or not more money makes people happy or happy people make more money. Happy people make more money. There was a survey, there was a research done on lottery winners and people who were paralyzed. They examined 19 lottery winners and 19 people who had become paralyzed all in the same year. What they discovered was the people who had won the lottery had no greater experience of happiness than the people who were paralyzed. In fact, they had a less experience because once they had won the lottery and they could, quote unquote, experience everything they wanted to, there was nothing more to experience. So they had nothing else to look forward to because they had gotten everything they wanted. Meanwhile, the paralyzed people had all of these accomplishments that they could look to that could make them happy. They could experience things in a whole new way, and that contributed to their happiness. That is the end of my screen share. So in this deep dive to happiness, and I am 8:22, ending this deep dive in happiness, there are reasons why you ought to be happy. God designed you to be happy. He gave us our emotions. And on the word wheel, the emotion word wheel, which we'll bring back next week, the largest section is happy. That ought to be the abundance of the emotions that you experience. We'll look at the bad ones because they are real, they are significant, and they are to be dealt with. But I want to leave you with being happy. That is the best thing that you can do for your overall health. It is the best thing you can do for your spiritual health. It's the best thing you can do for your mental health. it's the best thing you can do for your physical health. Take those 10 things that I gave you, pick one, and begin sowing that as a seed of happiness and watch it change your life. All righty, that's it for my share for tonight. Are there any questions?